goes. How did you get to know more about ICA and its services, please?
Well, my first encounter with ICA was um, through a friend. I I was looking for an organization that can offer me antiretroviral. You are worried about is workplace hazards like infections that you might come down with. And since prophylaxis is available to prevent yourself from getting infected with HIV in any case of an accident or something like that, that was something I wanted to get. And so this friend of mine said, oh, he is aware of an NGO called ICA that is responsible for basically healthcare, and they offer such services. So I decided to go down to ICA and access it for myself. When I went to ICA, I signed in. I met with the scientists in the clinic, and they had asked me, okay, what are you here for? And I said, okay, this is what I came for. And they said that I should hold on. They would like to run a test, and they did. And that was actually when I discovered that I was HIV positive. So I went in there to get prophylaxis, and I left with antiretrovirals.
Tell us a little bit on your journey to HIV advocacy and how your journey began when it comes to advocacy on HIV and AIDS.
Well, personally, I have always wanted to talk to people about HIV. I never really understood the stigma surrounding the conversation and people living with HIV, because as a child, my mom attended a seminar and she came back with some of the materials, and I went through it. And ever since I got to know about HIV, I never really understood why people would stigmatize people living with HIV over something that it's not communicable, right? It's not something you can transfer through touch and stuff like that. So if these people do not really pose you any threat, then why the stigma? So it is something I have always wanted to talk about, and I've had it in mind. And every time I come across people having the conversation, my perspective is usually different from most people because of what I know. But my journey to advocacy and actually inviting the conversation really started after I received my own diagnosis. About a year after, actually, I had thought through the whole thing, and I decided, this is something I wanted to do. So I decided to use my social media platform to draw attention to the topic.
Some of the misconceptions surrounding living with HIV and AIDS. Just take us through. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of misconceptions. I actually did a series highlighting some of the misconceptions surrounding HIV when I started talking about it. And there's a lot of them. Most notably, majority of people think HIV is only sexually transmitted. So if you are HIV positive, you definitely got it through sexual intercourse. That's one of the most prominent idea people have about HIV, and it is very wrong. So when a person says, I am HIV positive, the typical Nigerian, or I dare say African, does not really think, okay, maybe this person was born with it, or maybe this person got it through a blood transfusion, or something like that. The default thinking is that you got it through sexual intercourse, and that is a gross misconception. Because the HIV epidemic actually was spread widely through sexual intercourse, that formed people's understanding of the virus, and that's one of the most, I would say, gross misconception that people have about it. You're going to die. I think that's a myth that some people still hold till today. There was a time I posted a video about how I am taking my antiretrovirals and I can live a normal life like everybody else. And some of the comments I got were people saying, well, really, is that the case? Because from what I know about HIV and the way people talk about HIV, I think once you have HIV, you have like a few months to live. And that's really something that we need to rid ourselves of. First of all, people conflate HIV and AIDS, and then people think that to get out of that situation, there's no way to salvage yourself once you have been infected. But that's not true. Actually, there are people living with HIV who live very full life, and they are actually, you could never tell unless maybe you are privy to the information. You could never tell.
What strategies do you think that can be used to reduce the stigma surrounding HIV?
Talk about it.
Okay.
Talk about it. That's the number one strategy that I advocate for. Talk about it, because the more you allow it to be mysterious, the more conspiracies, the more misunderstanding, the more we don't talk about it and actually put the right information out there, the more we give room for the wrong information to continue to spread and continue to brew. So talk about it. And I would advocate that people living with HIV should find somebody that they know and love and tell them about their status. So start from your closest circle, maybe your family, your friends. Somebody should know. For every single person that you tell is one less misinformation. That's one more person who knows better, that is able to speak up against the stigma when he hears them, because now they know somebody who is HIV positive, and they know that you can be HIV positive and live a normal and be morally upright. You can be HIV positive and not actually be any of those things that they used to think is associated with being HIV positive. So once somebody is aware that you're HIV positive and they know you as a person that's beyond all the misconceptions that they have, it informs them, and it makes the conversation easier in society, I think.
How long can I wait before I access treatment? That's talking about someone who just found out their status.
Okay. Well, as soon as possible. Like I mentioned earlier, immediately I went into ICA, even though I went there to take prophylaxis. Immediately I was diagnosed. I left the building with my antiretrovirals. So the only reason why you would not maybe place yourself on treatment as soon as possible is if you do not have access to the medication. That's the only reason why you wouldn't. Otherwise, immediately begin treatment, because the thing with HIV is that the moment you were diagnosed is not the moment you got infected, right? So it is very possible that you might have been infected for a while. Depending on when last you actually checked your HIV status, you could have been infected for 6 months or a year or 5 years, right? So as you are diagnosed, you should find medication and begin treatment immediately.
What other services and care do you access at ICA?
Well, at ICA, since the time I've been there, just my antiretrovirals, and I also have access to viral load testing. Yes, ICA runs viral load testing. There is also a support group for people living with HIV that holds monthly. We meet and have discussions, talk. And basically it helps you as an individual to find a community, and it also helps with your mental health, so that you are fully aware that you're not alone and this is not something you have to struggle with. So these are some of the things that I have access to.
So in other words, has ICA really helped a lot in so many ways?
Yes, they have. I must say that they have, because having a non-governmental organization providing these services, especially that you don't have to pay for, I believe some people have to pay for their medication in certain places, and it's quite expensive, really. But ICA does all of this for free. You could access them at any time, and it really has helped, I would say.
So, would you recommend an advocate ICA to your friends and colleagues? And
Yeah, sure. Actually, ever since I started talking about HIV, whenever people reach out to me and say, "Oh, I need to place myself on antiretrovirals, or I need pre-exposure prophylaxis, or even condoms and stuff like that," ICA is definitely what comes to mind, because that's the organization that I am associated with. So that's the first thing. That you are fine. That's the message I have been trying to preach. You are fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. Being HIV positive is not the end of your life.